Kimberly. I'm an instructor at the Elkridge DIY Center, and today I'll be showing you how to make these butterfly royal icing decorations in a step-by-step tutorial. You can use any rolled sugar cookie recipe you want as the base for these decorations. I've linked one example in the description below the video. Alternately, these decorations could be piped onto a sheet of parchment paper and then used on top of cakes or cupcakes. To make the royal icing, you will need some measuring cups and spoons, a mixer, a whisk, and a sifter. The ingredients are 3/4 cup warm water, 5 tablespoons meringue powder, 1 teaspoon cream of tartar, 2 pounds powdered sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla or almond extract if your meringue powder doesn't already have vanilla in it. So in the mixer bowl, we're going to pour our 3/4 cup warm water and our meringue powder. Five tablespoons of meringue powder. I have a big one because I do this a lot. You definitely don't need this big of a mixture of meringue powder. They do sell much smaller containers. Then we are going to whisk that together until it is frothy and thickened. It's about 30 seconds. I'm just going to use a hand whisk and whisk it all together. This is what it should look like after 30 seconds, nice and thick. So to that mixture, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar and then mix it again for another 30 seconds. This will help stabilize your mixture, your icing, once it's set. To this mixture, we're now going to add vanilla, and then I'm going to do all of the powdered sugar. Anytime that I make royal icing, I always sift my powdered sugar to make sure there's no clumps or lumps in it. If you want pure white frosting, you're going to have to find some clear vanilla or use almond. I'm going to be tinting most of my icing, so I'm going to go ahead and use regular vanilla, which kind of has, will make it an off-white color instead of a pure white. So this package is exactly 2 pounds, so I'm going to be adding all of it using the sifter into my mixture, and then we're going to incorporate it all together with the stand mixer. Now we're done adding all the powdered sugar. We are going to set it on the stand mixer. So we've put that mixture onto the mixer with our paddle attachment. We're going to put it on low because all of that powdered sugar is right on top. Just for a few seconds while it gets all incorporated. I'm going to then scrape down the sides, and then I'm going to put it on medium for 10 minutes. Once your 10 minutes are up, see, this is much thicker icing. And we're going to go from here. We will be making our 10-second icing. I'm gonna just scrape this off. Then we are going to use a wet tea towel to cover this so that it doesn't dry up while we mix up our icings and fill our bags. After we make the royal icing, in order to do the decorations, I'm going to be using piping bags, couplers, tips that are numbers 1, 2, and 3, toothpicks, rubber bands, some glasses, and then some paper towels that I'm going to wet and put in the bottom of them. The 3 tips we have here are from the left, number 1, in the middle, number 2, and on the right, number 3. As you can see, the size of the openings gets progressively larger. I would use number 1 or number 2 in order to do detail work or outlines. I would only use 3 or 4 in order to do fill or flood icing. Now that the icing is finished mixing, I'm going to show you how to prep the decorator bags with the tip and coupler. You can do this while the machine is going for the 10 minutes. I didn't want to do it while my machine was going because then you couldn't hear me. So this just has some water in it. It's just for ease of use while I'm here. Make sure I can control how much water comes out. And I'm just going to wet a paper towel, put it in the bottom of a glass, and then I will be taking my bag, putting in the bottom half of the coupler, and you squeeze it all the way to the end till it can't go any further. And then with a pair of scissors, you're going to mark just past all of the threading. And then when you scooch the coupler back, you can see a little indent in the plastic, and just use your scissors to cut right across there. And you're going to squeeze the coupler down to the end. Cover the back end of the coupler with your tip. And then take the top and thread it around. Screw it on to the coupler underneath. So you have that nice and tight. You're going to take it and put it in your cup, and then turn the outside around like this, so that you have a holder and a place to put your icing directly in. So now that I have that prepped, go ahead and repeat that process and prep for however many colors you're going to be mixing and making. One very important part of making royal icing decorations or cookies is the consistency of the flood, fill, and outline icing. I prefer to make my icings all the same consistency so that I can change out tips between them. So I prefer a 10-second icing. I'm going to show you what that means, but here are the steps. I'm also going to start out with making a black icing so you can see what's going on with making that. Black does require a lot of food coloring in order for it to turn out actual black, but you can use whatever colors that you want for your decorations. So I'm going to uncover this. Take a bit of the icing. Then always make sure to recover your icing with a wet tea towel. Really don't want it to dry out because anything that dries out will be crusty and it will clog up your tips. I am using gel food coloring because it is much more pigmented, but you can use whatever you like. I do recommend, however, that you put the food coloring in first before you make your icing the right consistency, because especially if you're using a liquid-based food coloring, it's going to change the consistency of your icing as you add it. So do that first, and then we'll worry about adding some more water to it. This will probably look a little gray at first, but gel food coloring does darken as it sits and the color penetrates. So once we got the color mixed in a little bit, I'm going to add water a very little bit at a time. Keep in mind that it's much easier to add a little bit more water than to be able to try and change the consistency to make it thicker. It's always easy to make it thinner, so I always err on the side of a little bit on the thicker side and mix as I go. So now that we've got it to the right consistency, I believe we're going to go ahead and test it and see if it does the 10-second test. Alright, so I'm going to draw the butter knife across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the top is completely flat, so we've got our 10-second icing. So we've got our 10-second icing, and I'm going to put the black into the tip that has a number 1 on it, because that's the smallest one, and we're going to do some details in the black. To close this up, we're just going to fold these layers up, and then I'm going to take them all together and twist the top and then secure around it with a rubber band. There we go, that icing bag is all prepped, and just repeat that process with however many colors that you want to use. If you ever add too much water, make sure and save a little bit of the creamy icing to mix it back in order to make it a little stiffer. You don't want it to be too liquidy, because then it will just fall right off the cookie. Colors mixed, bagged, and set up, you're ready to begin decorating. Now we're ready to decorate the cookies. I'm going to start with outlining in black and also adding the bodies down the middle in black. I always have a paper towel in my other hand to wipe the tip to make sure it's not messy. And one other thing to note is that whenever you're doing royal icing, to always have your hand at the back by the rubber band and never be squeezing from the front or the middle, because that will cause the very thin royal icing to come out the top and make a very big mess on your project. Just going to do the body first. In. Then if there are any bubbles, you can use a toothpick to pop them. Doesn't look like there's any on this one. And then we're going to outline the wings. Touch it to the cookie and then pull it away just a little bit, and then as you move very slowly, you just let the icing fall onto the cookie so that it's a smooth line. This does take some practice. Figure out exactly how slow you should go. Let this dry and continue on with the rest of the cookies. Let these completely dry so that it will be an effective barrier to keep all the rest of the icing inside of the lines. You can tell that you're ready for the next step when the icing is no longer shiny. For this next part, I'm going to be moving pretty quickly because I'm going to be using a wet on wet technique, and it's important that everything blend together into the same layer. So I'm going to start out making a black crescent right along the edge of that outline. I'm going to fill this in with the blue. Now right here, this edge needs to come all the way out to the outline, so I'm just going to use the toothpick. Then I'm going to use the toothpick to drag down to the blue, wiping on my paper towel in between each drag. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to actually drag through that black one more time on this one. Gonna repeat it on this side. I had the surface a little elevated, but it's going to make my icing overflow, so I'm gonna have to do it flat. So again, just the crescent along the outside. Fill in with the blue. Make sure it goes all the way to the edge. No. Drag down. Down. I'm gonna do the bottom two in a different color. There are many different ways to decorate the wings. I'm just showing you a few of them that I like. Feel free to experiment. It's one of my favorite parts about royal icing. I'm gonna try one that's two-toned with blue and purple with the edges being black. Going to do the black around the edge. I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to fill in the entire wing with one color. And then I'm going to do 3 stripes. One in black, one in white, and another in black. Then I'm going to use my toothpick to pull down through all 3. Wiping it off on the paper towel in between. Then on this edge right here, oh, did not get the purple all the way to the edge of my outline. There we go. This edge I'm going to do a dot of white and then a very small dot of black in the middle. Some butterflies have this kind of a design. So we'll make it on ours. Then just barely touch the black right in the middle of that. Then because we have our 10-second icing, as it sinks down, it all becomes the same layer. So it looks like the decorations on a butterfly's wing. add just a little bit more detail, grab a completely clean toothpick and go ahead and take a white, make a little pile. Make sure to avoid putting any cookies in that pile. And then you're just going to dip the end of the toothpick in and make very small dots on the top of the black, close to the outline. Use the very tip of the toothpick to make smaller dots. Careful just to keep it on the surface of the dried icing. You don't want to poke through it. Just experiment with it and have fun. And that is how you make butterfly royal icing cookies. A few last minute tips: you want to make sure and wait at least 24 hours before stacking these so that you don't crush or ruin your designs. And also, these items should never go in a fridge. The humidity inside will ruin or melt the icing decorations. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and we'll check out more of HTLS's YouTube channel and the DIY playlist.